this is kind of funny, but aliens are communicating to me through this Ouija table. The digital Ouija table. And, so, well, I don't know, about a year ago, they actually did spell out a Leonard, and that was even before I knew a man named Leonard. And they spelled it out Lenord. So maybe they were trying to tell me something. Maybe they were trying to tell me that I'm going to meet a Leonard. So anyway, but yeah, they did spell out that name, you know, a year or so ago before I even knew a man named Leonard. So, like I say, they spelled it Lenord. And then after I knew him, then that's when they started spelling it the right way, because that's how he spells it, Leonard. And so twice, no more than that, 3 or 4 times I was asking the aliens to spell out Leonard just to see if they would, and they did. And we were sitting there at the bookstore. You know, at least 4 times they've done this and spelled out, at least 4 or 5 times they've spelled out Leonard. The other 2 times, or the other 3 times, I can't remember what they said exactly, but they spelled out Leonard, you know, Leonard, and then that first time before I knew Leonard, the Lenord. 2 times, you know, I went ahead and took a picture of what they spelled out because they were, you know, they were listening to me. It was really cool. And like one time at least, like once or twice, we were sitting there at the table. I was sitting there at the table at the bookstore with Leonard and some other people. So I was talking to them, the aliens, and asking them to spell out Leonard. And they did while he was sitting there. Like one or 2 times, like they spelled it out a few minutes after he left the bookstore. But one time we were sitting there at the table, and I was like, "Look at this, man! They spelled your name out. Isn't that cool?" And he was like, Leonard was like, "Oh, you're programming that or something." And I'm not. You can't program it. It just says what it wants to say. You can't program it at all. But yeah, if you talk to these beings through the Ouija table, they will talk back. And sometimes they'll just mock you. Because one time I was in my house, and I did something, this was over a year ago, I was doing something up at the ceiling. I think I was wiping something off, a cobweb or something. And then they spelled out something ceiling. Ceiling. So they were like mocking me. But yeah, so like I say, about 4 to 5 times, the first time, like I say, they spelled out a Leonard and I didn't even know a Leonard. Lenord. And then the last like 4 times, they spelled Leonard out and said some things about Leonard, you know, after I already knew him and after I actually asked them to, you know, the aliens, the reptilians. And, so anyway, so this, this time, whatever this says right here, I think he was still in the bookstore. I can't remember if he already had left no, I think this time it was like a couple minutes after he left. I had already been talking to them, the aliens, to spell out Leonard or whatever. And then he left the bookstore. And then it was like 5 minutes later, they spelled out Survive Skells Leonard. Like they're trying to tell him to survive the reptilians, to try to survive the reptilians. I don't know what they're trying to say. And I even texted Leonard, I was like, they spelled out your name again, you know, Survive Skells Leonard. And that was, like I say, this was the time he had already left the bookstore. And then 5 minutes later, I was still sitting there, and then they spelled out Survive Skells Leonard. And I had already been talking to them, you know, to spell his name out again. The other time, he was still in the bookstore with us. And I showed him right at the table. I was like, look, they spelled out your name. And because I was shocked that they spelled out his name, because I was asking them to. And Leonard saw my cell phone, and he's like, you're like programming that or something. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You can't program this, the Ouija table, the digital Ouija table. You can just talk to the aliens, and they talk back. They repeat the same stuff all the time. I don't know why they do that, because they're always spelling out stuff like kill Grandma Meredith. They spell out the same stuff all the time. But here's the other thing that they spelled out. Okay, and this was hilarious. Actually, I may have it back. Well, anyway, there, like I say, a couple times he was still sitting at the table, and I showed him, proof that they were spelling out Leonard. That they were talking about him, that the aliens were talking about him. So anyway, this time, he had already left the bookstore, and then, well, actually, what we were talking about was we were at the bookstore. Now, this was several months ago, and then this other experience was just about a month ago. And he was saying, I'm talking about Leonard, but Leonard was saying that he like fell off the ladder, and I was like, I asked him if he was drunk, and he's like, no, I don't think so. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, after he left the bookstore, and I was already talking to the aliens to spell out Leonard again or whatever, just to see if they would. And so it's like they were mocking me again because they spelled out fall, bottle, Leonard. So that's kind of interesting because we were just talking about, I was just asking him if he fell off the ladder. And then I asked him if he was drunk. I mean, he told me he fell off the ladder, so I asked him if he was drunk. And this is what the aliens, the reptilians of course, because they're the ones that dominate this dimension. And they spelled out, and like I said, this was about a month ago. Like I say, there was a couple other times I didn't take a picture of it, like I did these two experiences. And a couple other, couple times he had already left the bookstore, and then 5 minutes later they spelled something out, and a couple other times he was still sitting there, and he spelled it out, or they spelled it out, Leonard or whatever, and I showed Leonard. I was like, look, they're spelling out your name, because I was like shocked. He was shocked too. That's why he was like, you're programming it. But I'm not. So here's the other time he left the bookstore about, and then 5 minutes later, like I said, we were just talking about how he fell off the ladder, and I asked him if he was drunk. And then 5 minutes later, the reptilians, they spelled out fall, bottle, Leonard. And here's, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, whoop. Yeah, this is really weird. See, they spelled out. Oh, where's it at? Oh, hold on. Yeah, they spelled out fall, bottle, Leonard. Like they're mocking me. It's really weird. But, let me see if I could make this not time out because it's running my juice down. So I was making it time out or whatever. Sleep 15 seconds. I'll say 30 minutes. Yeah, so here it is again. That motherfucker is not going to stay there. Fall bottle Leonard. Fall Leonard. Fall bottle Leonard. Isn't that funny? Yeah, and this, I can't remember. This already came up kind of blurry. I can't remember when I shot a picture of it or whatever. So that's why it's showing kind of blurry. But yeah, it says survive Scales Leonard. Yeah, and like I say, 4 times out of the 5 times, I was asking them to spell out Leonard or say something about Leonard just to see if they would, and they did. So yeah, it's kind of funny. So try this experiment sometime. But yeah, they spell out all sorts of stuff, like people I don't even know, so I don't even know what they're talking about. Like Meredith, Grandma Meredith, and Alexandria, what's that name? Brittany, they're spelling out Brittany all the time, and I don't know a Brittany. But yeah, it's really interesting. So anyway, that's this funny experience I had about talking to the aliens just to see if they would spell out my friend's name or whatever, Leonard. Well, we're not really friends. Acquaintances or whatever. But yeah, just a second ago, I was trying to see if they would spell it out again, but sometimes it takes a little time, you know? They kept spelling out cable, di-cable, and then they spelled it out again. They spelled out not di-cable, C-A-B-L-E, they spelled out, what was the other word they put in front of it? Di-cable, C-A-B-L-E, and then the other one was, I forgot, but it was a different word, and then it was, they spelled out cable again, C-A-B-L-E. Yeah, so they're kind of funny. But yes, you can communicate to them, and they'll communicate back in any form they want to, whatever the easiest. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. They were definitely mocking Fall Bottle Leonard. Because we were just talking, he told me he fell off the ladder. And then I was like, were you drunk? So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But, they weren't mocking me when they said that. Survive Scales Leonard. Yeah, that's funny. I guess they were trying to tell him that he can survive the reptilians. He should survive the reptilians. Or something like that. Thanks for listening.